That night, my brother and I hid in a locked bedroom. Outside there were the shouts of our parents and the sound of a knife-piercing flash. Thud, thud, thud. The cries of our parents grew weaker and weaker until they faded away completely. Yes, they were dead, killed by someone unknown to us. The police arrived shortly after and declared that our parents had died in a robbery. But really, our neighborhood was too poor, and our family was a group of immigrants. So, who would be foolish enough to think of robbing such a run-down area? After spending a month in an orphanage, we were taken in by Mrs. Randolph. She was our biological grandmother, but my mother never mentioned her when she was alive. She hid all the letters that Mrs. Randolph wrote to us. Was my mother afraid of something? Mrs. Randolph cared deeply for us, or at least I thought so. She was a witch, a sorceress, or whatever term you use for a woman with supernatural powers. She taught us rituals, prayers, and promised to avenge the death of our parents. But you know what? We quickly forgot about that. As we grew older, we realized how crazy it all was and decided to leave. My brother was the first to go, leaving home to become a police officer. I followed not long after. It wasn't until I left Mrs. Randolph that I understood why my mother didn't respond to her letters. Because what my grandmother did was really strange. Not long after, a local lawyer came to me and informed that Mrs. Randolph had been killed. She was stabbed multiple times with a knife, just like the death of my parents in the past. At this point, I realized that perhaps she was right, and her psychic abilities, the one she used to have the police uncover the perpetrators of those secret crimes, were not just fabrications. Mysterious crimes enveloped my small town, and one by one, my friends, people I knew, departed. I thought I should go back. I should take over Mrs. Randolph's work. That's also how the story in Prognostic begins. After returning to take over Mrs. Randolph's witchcraft business, I proposed collaborating with my brother to gain more experience. Each day, my brother would send me a new unsolved case, and I would use the methods that Mrs. Randolph taught to bring the perpetrator to light. However, before actually doing that, I needed to pass the test set by my brother to ensure that I had the capability for him to trust me. He sends me information about 5 children, and when they grew up, one of them was the culprit behind a murder at 1 p.m. on December 14, 1902, living on the first floor of apartment 2 on Middle Street. I thought my brother was quite generous to give me such a simple test. I easily identified Harrison Hawkins as the culprit because the psychic forces had revealed to me that he was the only one living in apartment 2 on Middle Street. Finding the culprit through psychic powers? I know it sounds crazy, but you know what's even crazier? That I correctly identified the perpetrator of that crime, and my brother entrusted me with the first case. I'll call this case God's gift because it involves a devout family. Other suspects were members of the Fulton family. According to the files my brother sent, they live at the Fulton farm, no 18 Barnhill Street. This family lived reclusively and devoutly to the extent that they sacrificed the youngest member, Luke, at 11 a.m. on January 8, 1904. The remaining members were all covering up for the culprit, so their testimonies were worthless for the investigation. But it didn't take me long to find the perpetrator because the ones guiding me were souls, not humans, and as the saying goes in our profession, the dead do not lie. The one who murdered Luke Fulton to perform the sacrifice was Annabelle Fulton, the boy's biological mother, because during the time of the crime, both of them were at home while the other 3 members of the household were elsewhere. I sent the result to my brother. He received a response letter. He said I was correct. Annabelle admitted that he had to kill Luke to offer him to God because her husband refused to accept writing by hand to kill his own son. Horrifying, isn't it? My brother said that, thanks to this case, he revisited our grandmother's autopsy report and noticed something very strange. The stab wounds on her body were all very precise and definite, as if she didn't struggle when stabbed. You know, when you resist being stabbed, the contract surface of the knife and the body will change. The knife will surely deviate. So, it's hard for the knife to always be perpendicular to the body like the wounds on her. My brother argued that perhaps she was stabbed while sleeping and showed no signs of resistance. This was certainly a premeditated murder rather than just a robbery, as the police concluded before. The second case I received was a bizarre coincidence. The victim was Aaron Kelly, a local teacher, who suddenly had a heart attack and died right in the church. Of course, nothing would be amiss if at the same time Principal Florence Ball of the school hadn't also had a heart attack, but luckily she was saved in time. My brother informed me that during the autopsy, they discovered that the victim, Kelly, had been poisoned, leading to the heart attack. According to the testimony of the survivor, Mrs. Barr, the culprit was the brown-haired, blue-eyed person. However, among the suspects, everyone had similar hair and eyes colors. Therefore, I needed to find out who was with both victims at the same time of the incidents. With the guidance of the spirits, the perpetrator could be none other than Tristan Kinnard, because at 12 p.m. on January 28, 1904, he and both victims were present at Building 7 on Noah Street. Shortly after, my brother sent a letter saying that Kinnard did it because the victim, Aaron, has discriminated against and bullied his son just because the boy was Irish. The teacher even pulled all the children's hair to hit Kinnard's sons, causing the boy to be traumatized. That's why he planned to kill Aaron. I felt that guy got what he deserved. Why would there be such a despicable teacher like Aaron in the world, right? The next case I received wasn't about finding a perpetrator, but locating the body of a victim. An old police officer who had worked with my grandmother asked us to solve this case. After completing the task, he promised to tell me more about her. This wasn't difficult because the spirits quickly revealed to me that the victim was buried at house no. 6 on Middle Street. My brother took me there and we found the victim's body. The old police office also happily revealed that in the past, the police often collaborated with Mrs. Randolph, but after that incident, they stopped cooperating. In that case, my grandmother helped expose a particularly dangerous gang, but then the court ordered the release of those gang members. The next day, 12 of them committed suicide with guns, their final words being that they did it in response to God's call. The fourth case I solved was about a smuggling gang that had infiltrated the city and killed a sheep farmer's family. They had successfully escaped, but now returned. After sending the information to my brother, he immediately came and arrested them to pay for the lives they had taken. However, he mentioned to me that recently the number of cases was increasing, and suddenly the police discovered wanted criminals appearing in the town. There must be something causing all of them to suddenly show up in our town. But what could it be? My brother tried to examine the letters my grandmother had sent to my mother to find more clues, but they contained too many strange formulas and terms, so he had to seek help from a local professor. And do you know what's the most surprising thing? That professor used to be a classmate of my grandmother in college, and she even had a science degree. But unfortunately, tragedy struck the family of that professor. His granddaughter, Rebecca Dean, was murdered after attending her cousin's birthday party. However, the police couldn't precisely determine the date of the victim's death, only narrowing down the time of death to October 1904. If I could help the professor find out who killed his granddaughter, he would help me decipher my grandmother's old letters. Do you think I did it? Of course I did. And surprisingly, The murderer of Rebecca Dean was Selena Dean, her own sister. Selena confessed that she had heard rumors that Rebecca was having an affair with her boyfriend behind her back. So, she killed her younger sister. Now, she would have to face trial for that. It's a pity for the professor. In the blink of an eye, he lost both of his granddaughters. Yet, he still kept his promise to help us decode my grandmother's letters. The professor mentioned that in the letters, my grandmother referred the theory of my transmission, which she had researched during her college days. According to her reasoning, the thoughts and emotions of the deceased could influence the living. Sounds strange, right? But since my grandmother was a witch, and my childhood has been quite peculiar with her, I didn't find it too odd. The next case, well, it was quite complicated. The victims of this case were Emilia Walker and Lucas Walker, a married couple who had carried out many armed robberies, but no one dared to touch them simply because the girl's father had quite some influence in the city. However, both of them were killed shortly afterward. Emilia died at the end of 1903 at 7 Clover Street, while Lucas passed away in September 1904 at 4 Clover Street. Both were shot with a revolver, but nobody came forward as a witness for them. Perhaps everyone felt they deserved it, but you know, no matter what, I still had to find the perpetrator to prevent similar incidents from happening in the future. By this time, I even learned how to find the culprit using tarot cards. Can you believe it? The cards revealed to me that the perpetrator was Jerry Hancock because among other suspects, he was the only one present at both locations during the time of the murders. The police also found the weapon in his house. My brother said he believed Jerry surely didn't act alone, but Jerry chose to remain silent and immediately confessed. Jerry said he did it because he was haunted by the spirits of the Walker's couple victims. If it were in the past, I probably wouldn't have believed such a far-fetched confession, but now, maybe I would change my mind. At the end of the letter, my brother asked me if in doing this spiritual work, I was controlling the dead instead of them controlling me. That question from my brother made me ponder. Am I truly controlling the spiritual world? Or are they the ones who have been and are manipulating me? Recently, I've started to see my grandmother's figure in the house, perhaps because I've performed many spiritual rituals, and that has helped me to get closer to her every day. My brother also feels concerned about this, but we can't stop now. Today, I have to solve the case of Bradley Hopkins, a homeless man who was killed at 1 South Way. Perhaps due to being accustomed to the job, I quickly identified Elliot Edwards as the murderer of Bradley, and currently, he's hiding at 17 Pinner Street. After being arrested, Elliot confessed that a voice in his head had urged him to kill Bradley, and he even attempted to hang himself with a bed sheet in his jail cell but failed. At this point, my brother concluded that there seems to be some dark spiritual force influencing the townsfolk, attempting to submerge our town in bloodshed, and perhaps the soul of our beloved grandmother is trying to guide us to prevent things from going too far. My brother decided to set aside all the cases to focus on finding the culprit who murdered our beloved grandmother. The first person my brother suspected was Henry Saunders because he often delivered goods to our grandmother when she was alive. In July 1904, Henry's house burned down, and the police only found one charred body. They presumed it was Sophia Saunders, his wife, while Henry vanished without a trace. My brother suspected that he killed our grandmother, then staged his own death and fled to another town. To strengthen his hypothesis, he asked me to investigate what happened on the night of the fire. However, contrary to his thoughts, The spirits told me that the deceased was Henry, and the one who caused the fire was Sophia, his wife. My brother was skeptical, but went to the location I pointed out and apprehended Sophia, who was still alive. She burst into tears upon seeing the police and confessed that a voice had urged her to do it and told her to punish her by her husband. Sophia even believed that the voice she heard belonged to a woman. So, Henry wasn't the one who killed our grandmother. The real perpetrator was someone else. My brother shifted his suspicion to Victoria Danton, a long-time acquaintance of our grandmother. In October 1904, Victoria announced that she had won $40,000, and then the following week, her 4 grandchildren suddenly visited her after 15 years, and shortly after, she was notified of her death due to old age at home. It sounds ironic. I'm quite certain that Victoria's 4 grandchildren were only after her money, but my brothers suspect that Victoria faked her death after killing our grandmother. Although it sounds far-fetched, well, it's worth a shot, isn't it? And you know what? Victoria actually won the lottery, and she was killed by her grandson, Andrew Danton. To seize that money. Reading this line, I suddenly think of my mother, my poor mother. She spent her whole life bringing evildoers to justice, and what did she get? The coldness of her own family and a death that nobody wished for. The last person my brother and I could suspect is Judge Brooks, because he didn't like our grandmother, and he's the one who ordered the release of the gang in the last case she attended. Now he's retired peacefully, but he died 2 years ago at a masquerade party at 5 Durham Street. Perhaps, if we can solve Frederick Brooks' case, we can find clues about who killed our grandmother. Spirits told me that the culprit is young reporter Christopher Riley. After being arrested, Christopher confessed that he disguised himself as many different people to commit the murders, claiming he did it to help the city. Christopher's confession gave me an idea that my grandmother wasn't actually murdered. She orchestrated everything as a robbery, similar to our parents' deaths, to force us to reopen the case from years ago and continue her legacy. She used a knife to stab herself to death, which, absurd as it sounds, is the most convincing explanation with the evidence we have. So, it turns out everything was arranged by my grandmother herself. It took me quite a while to digest this information, and that night I had a dream. I'm not sure what I dreamed. I just saw a tunnel and wrote it in a letter to my brother. His mood upon receiving the letter was quite bad. Yesterday, my brother witnesses his boss being shot dead in his office, and the suspects turned out to be his colleagues. I helped him find the culprit. George cooked, but when questioned, George said he was actually targeting my brother, not the unlucky boss. And you know what's even scarier? My brother found an altar in George's house, and guess what? There's a picture of me and my brother on the altar. I know it's crazy. Someone's targeting us. I don't know what will happen next. Today, I saw our grandmother's ghost floating at the foot of the staircase and pointing towards the secret basement door leading to an underground waterway. I jumped in and told myself, maybe she's hinting something. I tried to swim towards the light at the end of the tunnel, and suddenly a monster emerged from the water and attacked me. I woke up. It was just a nightmare, but something even worse than that dream happened. The body of an unknown girl was found right outside my house, and the police suspect me as the culprit. Fortunately, my brother confirmed the alibi and cleared me of suspicion. However, remember George Cook planned to kill my brother. Someone came to help him. He attacked a guard and successfully escaped last night. My brother said I need to find where they're hiding as soon as possible. before they start threatening our lives. The spirits told me that Joe's accomplice is Patrick Whitney, and he's currently hiding at 18 Barnhill Street. I quickly sent this information to my brother, but the next letter I received wasn't from him. He's been killed. I'm sure of it. Someone sent a letter back to me, probably George and Patrick, saying they're surprised I found them, and now they have a new case for me, but I have to close my eyes. Now, what do you think I can do? I closed my eyes and followed their instructions, and when I opened them, I was in a dark space, but only an old mirror with the words, "Please forgive my sins," written in blood. I looked into the mirror and saw my grandmother. Then she disappeared, and another mirror appeared. I didn't know what was happening. This kept repeating many times, and the scene in the mirror became increasingly strange. Something was approaching me in the darkness, something tall and thin. It frightened me. I ran to each mirror, and the words on them keep changing. "Don't let them come back. Don't let him in. He's coming." What do these words mean? I don't know. I just knew a monster was rushing towards me. The same monster I saw in the nightmare before the day my brother died. I woke up, and the mysterious figure left me a new case, the case of my parents. Now I have to find the hidden face of the murderer who destroyed my family's happiness. And would you believe it? The culprit is Joan Randolph. Yes, my grandmother, the one who raised us, killed our parents and ruined our family. A letter was sent. The mysterious figure said my grandmother did it because she needed a successor, a child who faced death when they were young, and she chose me. She killed my parents, manipulated my life, just so I could have her fight against someone I didn't even know. The mysterious man said they would give me a chance to resurrect my family. I followed him down to the basement and fell into a pool of blood. The mirrors containing the souls of my family members appeared. And now, what should I do? Smash the mirrors to bring them back to me, or leave them as they said, "Don't bring us back." If I break all the mirrors, a large mirror will appear. The monster that attacked me in the dream will emerge from the mirror, and I know for sure there will be no coming back after that. So I decided not to break them. The monster trapped in the mirror couldn't escape. It screamed in agony and disappeared into the mirror. A door appeared, leading me back. It seems that the monster is what my mother had been trying to control all this time. I don't know what havoc it will wreak once it escapes, but I believe that's not something I want to find out. Perhaps I'll never be able to forgive her for what she did to my family, but I'll continue her work because now, besides me, no one else can tame that monster in the mirror. Today's story about the game, Prognostic, has come to an end, but we will meet again in tales of other great games in the future.